in praise of the humble metronome. A rant. I see you hipsters with your mechanical metronomes. Or maybe you have one of those fancy metronomes that can do everything but dance a jig. Hey, who needs metronomes at all? I've got a smartphone. I'm here to tell you why you don't need any of those and why this is the perfect piece of equipment. Hello everyone, it's August 6th, 2019. It's Tuesday. It's Harp Tuesday. Welcome to this week's rant. I'm just going to talk a little bit about metronomes, and I did an episode a number of years ago talking about how to use a metronome when practicing, so I'll link to that. But here I'm just going to talk about sort of the specifics of metronomes, and again, why I think this is such an ideal design, even though it's in many ways very low tech. So this comes with a number of different advantages, and primarily it's so easy and accessible to use. I just finished a couple weeks ago a book called Atomic Habits, which one of the things that the author talks about in there is that if we're trying to start a habit or maintain a habit, we want to make the first steps of doing that as easy and frictionless as possible. So for example, if we want to jog more, we come home from work, we always change into our jogging clothes. Whether we go jogging or not, at least we've taken that first step and removed a little bit of the friction. And another example, sometimes I'll have people ask me, do you put a dust cover on your harp when you're not playing? And of course, if you're going away for a long time or something, yes, that would make sense. And certainly putting a dust cover on the harp maybe gives it the maximum amount of protection, but I would never recommend it in normal use because I love seeing my harps. It makes me want to play them. And if you have a cover on your harp, it's one extra step to go from looking at your harp to playing. And again, trying to just do what you can to remove these little things. They may not seem like much, but they can have a big effect. So if you want to use more metronome, hey, let's try to make it as easy as possible. So for me, my metronome lives on my music stand. I have a Manhasset music stand with stand extenders, lots of room to have a metronome on there, pencil, musician's earplugs, tuning key, just there and handy and ready to go. And the beautiful thing about this type of metronome, right, is that it does everything you want to and very efficiently and easily. You turn it on, it starts clicking. You move this, and you can adjust the speed. You can very quickly go to the speed that you want, right? So some metronomes that may be a similar size to this, but that have buttons, so maybe they're fully electronic rather than this kind of analog dial, and you press the buttons up or down to adjust the speed. It just takes time, and that it doesn't seem like much, right? Okay, push, 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 but it just is one extra roadblock to using a metronome. Whereas here, whatever I've left it at doesn't matter. I'm down here at 66. I want to go up to 180. Bang, I'm right there. Very precise as well. I talk about some of these other metronomes and how they're not necessarily as precise and easy to get to the speed that you want. So it's fantastic. Simple, easy, and great. Okay, well, what about those hipster mechanical metronomes? Look very cool. Cool concept. I absolutely agree. I've never owned one, but I've had students who have used them, and I'm always a little bit wary of them because I've had instances where they're not quite metronomic, not quite in sync. I had a student who was saying, I have such a hard time playing this particular passage with a metronome. So I asked her to play it with a metronome, and it turned out that her metronome was sort of going tick, 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 tick. It was a mechanical metronome. And I think my understanding is that they're very finicky, that you have to put the bass, it has to be very level. Otherwise, and it makes sense to me, there's a chance that it might not be quite a consistent beat. And I'm just not willing to take that risk. Also, they often are bigger form factor. And again, I want this metronome to be accessible and easy to get to and super handy. And so that's a couple of reasons why I prefer something like this. I also think finding the beat, the number that you want, is maybe a little bit harder on those. Okay, well then, if you say, I need a metronome, I'm going to go out and get the best metronome money can buy. And why are we, this must be outdated. Let's get some more technology in here. And there are all these, certainly I was the Dr. Beat metronomes that can do all sorts of things and all sorts of rhythms and polyrhythms so that you can hear 2 against 3 or 5 against 7 and whatever you want. But is that really what we need? And so, for example, they'll click on the downbeat in a different sound. So you might go tick, talk, 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 tick, talk, talk, talk. If you're in 4/4, or tick, talk, talk, tick, talk, talk, 3/3, so that you're getting a different sound on the downbeat. And that really drives me crazy. I don't want that. I just want this steady beat that's just clicking away and that establishing that pulse. Because what if you're playing a piece that has maybe changing meters, right? Maybe we have a bar 3/4, a bar 4/4, a bar 3/4, bar 4/4. Maybe the beat, the quarter note is staying consistent, but the number of quarter notes per bar is changing. And if you have something where it's trying to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and now here's your new one, but it doesn't know that. Really annoying. Of course, likely you can, with these fancy metronomes, you can turn that off, but it's just I don't need that option. I'm really happy with just a steady, consistent beat. And again, they may not be as easy to just dial in to this, to whatever it is that you want, so that you're not trying to mess around with trying to get the speed that you want. It's just so easy and accessible to get that. If you want to hear polyrhythms, and that can be useful, right, to actually hear mathematically exactly how 2 against 3 or 5 against 7 or what have you sound, my suggestion would be to use some notation software on your computer. So I have Finale, but MuseScore is free and open source. Anybody can download it and use it. Very powerful notation software. So you could just notate the rhythm and have it play back. Or you can actually, and I've done this a few times, you can actually write out the passage that you're interested in. So the Debussy dances, the section right towards the end with some of the interesting rhythms there. What is it? I think it's just 3 against 5. Anyway, you can notate that out and hear how it all sounds mathematically perfectly. But you don't need that, for me, in the metronome. Again, if you're maybe a drummer, that's another story, but I don't think we need this in general for the harp. Okay, well, then you say, what about apps, right? Because everybody's got a smartphone these days. Why not have an app on my phone? And I use Fourscore on the iPad as music software for reading music. And it has a built-in metronome, for example. It defaults to giving you a different sound on the downbeat, but you can turn that off. It's pretty good at finding, you can draw sort of a circle. Let me see if I can show that to you. So you can pull this circle around, a little hard, sorry, from this angle. Well, anyway, take my word for it. You can pull this circle around to change the tempo, which is great, right? Because again, we want to make that as easy as possible. But let's say I want to get to 120. I have to go back and forth a little bit to find it. And there it is. But sometimes I might, as I pull my finger off, take my finger off, it might just move it one beat faster or slower than I want, and I could do a micro adjustment here. It's good. It's a good setup. It's great. But again, I just think this is so easy and straightforward and does exactly what we want without any extra stuff that we don't need. There are a couple other downsides with software-based options, I think. I don't use my iPad all the time. A lot of the time I'm just practicing from paper music. I don't necessarily have my iPad with me then. Or let's say your phone. I think phone's even more dangerous because are you in airplane mode? If you're not, maybe you're sitting practicing and then, you see a notification that Josh Layne has uploaded a new video. Let's go watch that instead of practicing. Maybe not a great idea, right? So it's a potential distraction, I think, for sure. If you're trying to practice, keep your phone out of the room or have it somewhere face down, again in silent mode. So those would be hesitancies for me to having it be based off of my smartphone. Maybe my smartphone batteries are low. Maybe it's not with me at the time. Again, this metronome on my music stand just makes it so easy. And again, I think, okay, I realize I want to use the metronome here. I take my phone out, unlock it, open up the app, set the tempo I want, make sure the volume's on, etc., etc. I think it just takes longer than reaching over, adjusting the speed you want, and turning it on. So again, these metronomes are awesome. Now, there are a couple, I guess, potential flaws in even as perfect a lovely little piece of equipment as this. So this has no volume control. And this is something that I was really aware of, especially when I was younger. I practiced a lot with the metronome, did a lot of work with the metronome, and I would eventually wear out the battery. It would get softer and softer and softer, and I'd have to replace it. And then that new battery was loud. It was too loud, really. You could let it run down for a while, or you could, if you had something else that was using a 9-volt battery, which is what this uses, and again, that's kind of outdated, but you could maybe let that use the battery for a while and then put it in. But there are metronomes similar to this that come with a volume control. That's something that's worth looking at and worth perhaps getting. These are great. They also have the flashing light, right? So that it will just flash the light instead of the sound. And that can be really helpful because sometimes maybe you want to just check, are you keeping a steady pace? So you can start while watching the light and then look away, play for a while, and then look back. And I think I talked about this in my episode on using the metronome. So the only other big downside, I think, is that it doesn't give you the option of playing with both hands and increasing the speed, gradually increasing the speed at the same time. So these are fantastic, again, for gradually increasing the speed with one hand or the other. I can be playing here and moving this faster, 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 faster with the left hand, or vice versa, play left hand, move this faster, faster with the right hand. But I can't be playing with both hands at the same time. And that's where a software-based, or maybe even, and again, I don't actually have a lot of hands-on experience with something such as the fancier Dr. Beat type metronomes, maybe there is the option to say, okay, I want to gradually increase the speed. So that is where perhaps you want to use a combination, this for normal usage, and maybe you find an app on your phone that will let you set a starting point and have it, say, gradually increase that tempo, because that is a very, very helpful practice technique. Anyway, again, just having some fun ranting a little bit about metronomes. Hope there was something in there that was useful, and I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Cheers.